Hey guys, what's happening? So we're back with more in the new Venom series, which at the moment is still taking a step back from the Symbiote Secret War to give us a bit of a symbiote conspiracy spy thriller, featuring Natasha Romanoff and her new symbiote. So let's hop back in, but first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications so we can squad up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so coming back, we pick up with Bren, who we saw in the last issue get ambushed just outside his home by the no-name syndicate, as they overwhelmed him and the Toxin Symbiote with a barrage of heat and sonic weapons that made the Toxin Symbiote feel like it was being cooked from the inside, giving it no other choice but to let Bren go, in hopes of saving him. Which now brings us to this undisclosed location where we find Bren prepared for the worst, because at this point it's clear that these guys kidnap Alchemax employees as well as people who are closely related to them, with the intention of televising their death by way of recreating incidents caused by Alchemax. And they've made it clear that they're doing this to get Alchemax to come forward, to admit to their wrongdoing and how they've caused innocent lives to be lost. And Bren's aware of that, so he knows where this is going, which is why this whole time he hasn't spoken a word to them. And as Bren is sitting here without the Toxin Symbiote, without his other, the loneliness is suffocating. He feels hollow, weak, and small, and he has no idea of what became of his other, or if Toxin's even still alive. Meanwhile, when we go back to Venom and Widow, who are racing to Bren's home after sensing through the hive that Toxin was in trouble, they get there only to find traces of what had happened, with the air filled with the smell of burnt flesh and chemicals, like someone was barbecuing meat still in the plastic. Which, right there, I've never done that, so I can't say that I know what it smells like, but it's a great description. It almost sounds like something you'd say if you're roasting somebody, or if you stepped into an Uber that was pretty ripe. But as Venom and Widow get here, Venom senses that Toxin fled somewhere into the sewer, so they both head down. And when they do, there's a couple things I want to point out here, because for one, Venom just slides through this vent because Dylan's not physically here, and we'll talk more about where he's at and what he's doing in a little bit. But also, as they make their way down into the sewer, there's this moment where Widow asks if Venom can feel something heading their way, and Venom says, yes child, Toxin is here somewhere. And it begs the question if Venom's referring to Widow as his child or just as a child. Because as it stands, us as the reader, we still haven't been given that moment where it's been made clear for us who spawned the Widow symbiote. And it seems like we'll be waiting a little bit longer for that. Because from the time Natasha got the Widow symbiote up until now, as brief as that has been, they've just had to hit the ground running because of the chaos surrounding this no-name organization. But nonetheless, while they're down here in the sewer, they eventually find Toxin, who is in bad shape after that attack. So Venom tells Widow to hurry up and find Toxin a host, or otherwise he won't make it. And even with Toxin just hanging on to life by a thread, its only concern is finding Bren, or at least knowing if he's okay. So to buy Toxin a little bit of time, while Widow makes her way to find him a host, Venom takes in Toxin. And not just for the purpose of buying Toxin some time, but also so Venom can get Toxin into its hive and get some answers, since right now Toxin is just too weak to reach out on its own. And once he's inside, Toxin lets Venom know that No Name did this. They came prepared, they had a weapon that felt like they were burning him from the inside. And Toxin describes that it felt like when you leave something in the microwave too long and it explodes, because it felt like him and Bren were meatloaf left too long in the heat. Which once again is another amazing description. And he goes on to explain that this is why he had to let Bren go, because what No Name was doing to him was killing Bren. And now the kid's all alone and Toxin feels terrible about it. And Toxin knows because of No Name's MO, they're planning to kill Bren. So he tells Venom to find Bren's dad, Oscar, while Toxin goes after Bren and just slaughters No Name. So Venom asks Toxin if he's able to track Bren, but Toxin's not sure that he can because he's so weak right now, and he needs a host soon to get his bearings. So Venom lets him know that they're working on it. And for a moment here, we head back up top to the guys who grabbed Bren, who are currently blocking off the area in front of Bren's home. And as we do this, we're given a brief story about the no one who grabbed Bren and the circumstances that led him to getting involved with this group. And we're told that he's a guy named Jack. He's a hard worker, a decent guy, living what he would consider to be a small life. He lost his mother at some point, but he still had his dad, his job, his friends, until he lost his dad in an incident where a fire caused by Allen chemicals destroyed his hometown, burning his father alive, to where later his dad died in his arms. And really quickly, for those who might not know, Allen Chemical, which was Liz Allen's company, was merged with Oscorp, who soon after snatched up what was left of Horizon Labs, and collectively they became Alchemax. So really anyone in this no-name syndicate could be someone or anyone who believes that they were wronged in some type of way. by one of the former companies prior to the merger. So in the case of Jack, it was Allen Chemical, where in his case, months later, No Name found him, which just tells us that No Name has been around for a while, increasing their numbers and making their preparations to bring Alchemax to justice in their own twisted way. But it's here where we see Jack and the other No One hear a sound coming from the nearby alley, so the two of them go to check it out, only to find what appears to be just a harmless cat with little green stripes and 4 red eyes, cause that just sounds like a perfectly normal kitten, only for them to find out that it's not, and it's actually Sleeper, who a lot of you guys have been asking for cause it's been a while since we've seen him in this series. And he's come here now cause he's part of the backup that Venom was talking about in the last issue, when Venom told Widow that more symbiotes from his hive are on their way. But as Sleeper's about to grab this guy, another symbiote just snatches the dude up from behind, and it's Widow, where in her case, for Natasha and her symbiote, this is their first time meeting Sleeper. And again, the conversation is really quick cause Widow's like, oh, you must be Sleeper, and Sleeper is more or less like, yo, let's get this guy back in one piece cause this host is no use to Toxin if he's dead. So the two of them get the new host back to Venom quickly. And when he wakes up, the dude is terrified, cause the first thing he sees is Toxin jumping out of Venom's mouth and onto him. And as Toxin bonds with this guy, Jack, we're told that there's this moment between the two of them where it's like grief versus fury as the two begin to blend together. But it's also made clear that Toxin doesn't have room for anyone but Bren. So for that reason, Toxin just goes through this guy's mind looking for information on where to find Bren, only to find out that unfortunately this guy does not know. So after this, Venom and Widow take the next step and they go to find Bren's dad, Oscar, which from here takes us back over to Dylan, and it shows us why Dylan wasn't in the Venom symbiote prior to this point, cause as it turns out, their plan to find Bren's dad was for them to use Dylan as bait and have him just walk around showing his face, cause they know Alchemax is checking cameras and looking for him, which now raises the probability of Oscar showing up in person to ask Dylan where's his son. And it ends up working cause they get a hit, so Venom goes back to Dylan as Widow lets them know that they've got a number of Alchemax cars incoming, with Bren's dad sitting in the last vehicle. So as the cars approach, they set it up so they could bottleneck the vehicles on a bridge, so Venom tells Widow, careful child, you haven't tested your strength yet, cause again, Natasha's symbiote's really young, and they're not really sure about his full capabilities, or even his limitations for that matter. But Widow just tells Venom, I got it, as she jumps down in front of the last vehicle, hitting it head on as Venom swings in and catches Oscar. And it gives us this moment that really feels like a what if Michael Bay directed Venom type of thing. But even as Venom is grabbing Oscar and landing with him safely, the rest of his team are still shooting with these symbiote killer rounds that pierce Venom's skin and burn like crazy. So for a moment, Widow gives them cover, and with how it's done, it's almost like we're given another sneak peek into some of the capabilities of the Widow symbiote. But after this, they take Oscar to a location where they can talk to him, and when we go back to Bren, we find that since we've seen him last, he's been roughed up, and the no one who he's talking to here, who for the most part is trying to get Bren to say that he's no one, because that's also part of the whole show. But we get this moment where this guy tells Bren that they thought one of their more recent kills would have sent a heavier message, but as it turns out, people were more upset about the broadcast interrupting their regular scheduled program, which is wild. But this also made me think, with the way that the world works for real, if somebody tried this, it would never get seen, at least not until it hits social media, because everybody's streaming nowadays. But the first thing that Bren asks this guy is if they killed Toxin, which then has to do like, geez kid, you named it? Which I mean, of course, Toxin didn't get his name from Bren, but as it stands, that's his other. And yes, his symbiote has a name. And next, when we go back to Venom and Widow, Dylan's just repeatedly calling for Venom, who at this point is not able to heal as quickly as Venom usually would, and still healing, but very slowly nonetheless. But as Natasha's trying to talk to Bren's dad and fill him in on what they know and ultimately get him to cooperate, so if they can't find where No Name's holding Bren, he could at least release the information that'll save Bren's life. But instead, Oscar is just going off and blaming Venom and just assuming that Venom's behind this whole thing. So Widow snatches him up, and for a moment you can tell that Natasha's getting ready to use her interrogation methods, albeit the symbiote version, to get the answers that she needs out of Oscar, because as it stands, they really don't have the time to do much of the back and forth. But Venom quickly steps in, reminding Natasha that this is Bren's dad and they don't want to hurt him. Which in a way, seeing Venom step in, it gets Oscar to listen, as Natasha then goes on to break everything down as far as what she knows about No Name, who they are, why they're after Alchemax, as well as what it is that they want. But Oscar tells them that he doesn't have access to the file that they want, because it's highly classified within Alchemax. But if getting it will help them save his son, then he'll do whatever he can to help them get it. But even while they're talking, we see that a No Name sniper is nearby and he has them in his sights. Meanwhile, when we go back to Bren, we find that him and a few other victims have been chained to the bottom of an empty pool that'll soon be filled with the same kind of deadly water that Alchemax left their families to drink, to bathe in, to play in, before it hollowed them out and rotted their innards. And this guy tells Bren that it'll take 37 hours for this pool to fill up, but it'll be over for them long before that. But unlike him and his men, Bren and the other captives here, their families have a chance to save them. So next they remove the gags and they get the live feed ready to broadcast the whole thing. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/Dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.